Have you ever, looked at the history of the universe and felt like there's just a huge chunk of missing time, like a massive cosmic gap before humanity even existed?
Oh, absolutely. We usually view time as this simple straight line that basically starts with us, right? But if you look into ancient Hindu cosmology, that line is actually this highly complex, turbulent machine.
Right. And if you actually crunch the numbers in these ancient texts, the math doesn't quite add up. They're exactly 2,736,000 human years completely missing from the record.
Yeah, a massive blackout. Time that existed long before humanity even took its first breath.
And that's exactly the mission for today's deep dive. We're going to decode this hidden timeline of the universe, figure out how Earth was formed from cosmic destruction, and, see what this means for your own karmic journey.
Which is fascinating because we're looking at a really unique stack of translated sources today. These aren't just philosophical poems.
No, not at all. They read like um, literal engineering schematics for the universe.
Mhm.
We've got a collection of translated documents with titles like The 13 Missing Phases of 72 Manvantaras, a presentation simply titled Earth.pptx, and another text breaking down the end and beginning of a Manvantar.
And they get deep into the mechanics of galaxies, planetary collisions, spiritual evolution, all of it.
Okay, let's just unpack the biggest mystery right out of the gate. The math. I mean, we measure time in centuries and millennia, right?
Yeah.
But these sources measure time in massive epochs called Manvantaras and Chaturyugas.
Exactly. It's a completely different scale.
So the texts point out that in a 72 Chaturyuga cycle, there is a missing chunk of 2.7 million years. Where on earth did that time go?
Well, to figure that out, you have to look at how the texts divide a cosmic cycle. A full cycle actually has 16 distinct phases.
Okay.
But the mortal realm, what the texts call Maruts, it only experiences 3 of those phases. And those 3 happen at the very end of the cycle.
Which leaves 13 phases just totally unaccounted for.
Exactly. Those 13 missing phases are that massive 2.7 million year gap. But the time isn't actually lost. It occurs at the very beginning of a Manvantara.
Oh, so it's happening before we even show up.
Right. It's a period of pure cosmic construction. It's the time required to build the actual infrastructure of the universe before the clock of the mortal realm is even allowed to start ticking.
Okay, so if we're talking about 2.7 million years of cosmic construction, what is actually happening in the dark while the clock is paused?
Just a phenomenal amount of work. The sources say that during this period, the broader galactic infrastructure is being built by the sons of Brahma.
Okay, like who?
So this includes the nakshatras, the realms of the devas, the sudas, the asuras. Heaven is constructed, and the offspring of Prajapati and the Saptarishis begin to...
Wait, pause. Let me just stop you right there. You just threw out a ton of names. Nakshatras, devas, asuras. For a listener who doesn't have a degree in ancient cosmology, what are we actually talking about here?
Good question.
I mean, are we talking about literal gods floating around in space? Or are these metaphors for physical forces like, I don't know, gravity and radiation?
It's both, actually. That's what bridges the mythological with the mechanical here. In these specific texts, they are described as beings, yes, but their function is entirely structural.
Structural how?
Well, the nakshatras are literal constellations, right? They're mapping out stellar coordinates. The devas and asuras represent opposing cosmic forces.
Like a push and pull.
Exactly. Think of them as the positive and negative charges of the universe's energetic field. And the Saptarishis, the 7 great sages, they act almost like the foundational architects setting the laws of physics. They're establishing the cosmic programs.
Okay, so they're basically setting up the physics engine of the universe.
Mhm.
But while they're out there doing all that, what is Earth doing?
Earth at this point is essentially just a barren, burning sphere of fire, totally uninhabitable.
Just a ball of lava.
Pretty much. It just sits there baking until the sun and the moon begin their orbits around it. That specific gravitational and energetic interaction is what finally causes the 5 fundamental elements to form.
And life doesn't just, crawl out of a primordial soup on its own.
Right.
The text points to a very specific catalyst for that.
It does. The spark comes from Shankar, acting from the essence of Shiva. The documents state that Shankar arrives on this cooling earth and flows Pranvayu into it.
Pranvayu. I usually hear that translated as breath. But in an engineering manual for the universe, what's the actual mechanism there?
You can think of Pranvayu as the primary animating life force. It's the vital electrical current that wakes up inert matter.
Oh, wow. So he flips the switch.
Exactly. And when that current interacts with the newly formed elements, it triggers this rapid simultaneous creation of creatures. But this isn't random evolution.
Right.
It's being actively driven by the powers of those cosmic realms we just talked about. All those structural blueprints established by the Devas and Saptarishis, they exist in a massive cosmic matrix called the Shishumar Chakra.
You know, I was trying to wrap my head around this Shishumar chakra thing, and I think I've got an analogy that makes sense of this whole 2.7 million year gap.
Oh, yeah. Walk me through it.
It sounds exactly like a video game loading screen,
Ah, okay, I can see that.
right?
Yeah.
Because you start a massive open world game, and the screen just goes black for a minute. You can't play yet. But in the background, the engine is working furiously.
Rendering the environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's rendering the terrain, which is the Earth cooling down. It's programming the physics engine, getting the sun and moon to orbit properly, and it's populating all the background code, the opposing forces of the celestial realms, into that Shishumar chakra matrix.
That's actually a perfect way to look at it. All that background data is fully rendered and running before the main player, humanity, is finally dropped into the server.
So when do we actually get dropped in?
Well, the sources say that eventually, this wild period of background generation hits a stagnation point. It pauses, and that's when Brahma, inspired by Indra, creates human bodies.
But the text uses a very deliberate word for them, doesn't it?
Yes, it calls these human bodies yantras, which translates directly to machines or instruments.
Biological machines.
Right. Instruments specifically designed for a soul to use. And it's only then that Manu, the progenitor of mankind, steps in to start human civilization.
So Manu is the player dropping into the server.
Exactly. The moment Manu steps in, the loading screen finishes. That is when earthly timekeeping, our mortal clock, finally starts.
We're literally the last piece of the puzzle.
We are. But because humanity and Earth are the final pieces, they're designed through a process the sources call mirroring. Earth is physically built to reflect the cosmic architecture from the loading screen.
Wait, you mean metaphorically reflecting it, right? Like
Yeah.
as above, so below?
No, the texts mean physically. It states that the Himalayas on Earth are an exact physical reflection, a cosmic mountain range that exists in one of the nakshatra realms.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Even the coastal indentations of our oceans, the precise way the land cuts into the water, they're mirrored perfectly across these dimensions.
How is that physically possible? Are we talking about some kind of cosmic holographic projection shaping the dirt?
The mechanism described is closer to gravitational or energetic blueprints. Just like sound frequencies can cause sand on a metal plate to form precise geometric patterns.
So like cymatics.
Exactly, cymatics. The immense energetic frequencies of these celestial realms act on the newly cooling matter of Earth. The tectonic plates and oceans literally settle into the exact shapes dictated by the cosmic resonance of the Shishumar chakra.
That is incredible. So we're walking on a scale model of the heavens formed by cosmic sound waves.
Pretty much.
Okay, but if this 2.7 million year loading screen is how a cycle begins, what triggers the end? Does the server just crash after the 72 shutter yugas run out?
It's more of a highly scheduled demolition. According to the text, a Manvantara officially ends when our sun finishes its designated lifespan. When the sun's time is up, the planetary deities, the managers of the solar system, they just abandon their posts.
The managers just pack up and leave. What happens to the physics engine when they do?
Total collapse. The gravitational and energetic bonds holding Earth to the sun, to the moon, and to the broader cosmic structure just completely snap.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Earth is violently thrown out of its solar system.
It just goes rogue into the dark.
Exactly. And at this point, Vishnu takes the form of the Matsya avatar, the great fish, to safely carry the next Manu and the Saptarishis into the vast, dark galactic ocean. They're preserving the architectural seeds for the next cycle.
Okay, what about Brahma?
Brahma goes to sleep, pulling all the active energy inward. And this is when the true chaos begins. Without the managers maintaining the orbits, galaxies collide.
Galaxies collide.
Yeah. Suns, planets, and the rogue Earths from these colliding galaxies crash into each other in the dark.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm reading this right. Every single solar system in this cosmological model is literally built on the wreckage of a galactic car crash between two rogue Earths.
That is exactly what the text asserts. Two Earths from entirely different colliding galaxies smash into one another. One Earth is utterly pulverized into cosmic dust, while the other is partially destroyed.
But wait, what happens to the old Earth, like the one that was cast out of our system?
Their inner cores, which the text beautifully describes as their souls, begin this slow process of merging together in the fiery wreckage. And this leads to what might be the most staggering astronomical claim in the entire stack of documents.
Okay, hit me.
The sources reveal that our neighboring planet, Mars, was the Earth of the previous Manvantar.
Wait, back up. Mars. The red planet was the Earth before us.
Yes.
Let me just stop you right there, because this is a massive claim. We've sent rovers to Mars. We have orbiters mapping its surface right now. Are these texts claiming that if we dig deep enough under the red dust, we're going to find the physical ruins of a past human civilization?
Well, no, it's not about finding buried cities. Remember the utter destruction of the galactic collision we just talked about.
Right, the car crash.
Exactly. The physical surface, the biology, the oceans, all of that was completely incinerated or shattered. What remains as Mars today is just the burned out cinder, the merged core of that previous cycle. But the texts argue that the planet retains the energetic memory of what happened there.
Energetic memory. What kind of memory?
In that past Manvantara on Mars, the presiding supreme deity was Shakti, the divine feminine force. The documents specifically point to the Markandeya Purana, which is this ancient text filled with epic cataclysmic battles of the goddess.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Well, the sources claim that all of those legendary conflicts actually took place physically on Mars during its time as the center of the mortal realm.
So we're sitting here reading these ancient mythologies thinking they're stories about our world, but they're actually historical records of a dead planet.
Precisely. And the echoes of that truth still exist in how we view the cosmos today. Think about Hindu astrology. It still remembers Mars's past.
Oh, because Mars is revered as a commander, right?
Yes. Yes, a warrior planet, an aggressive symbol of Shakti. It literally carries the energetic frequency of its time as the cosmic battleground.
Okay, so if Mars is the burned-out graveyard of Shakti's domain, what is our current Earth?
In our current cycle, the presiding deity is Vishnu, specifically the Vamana avatar. Therefore, all the avatars we know of in this cycle, like Ram and Krishna, they are manifestations tailored to the specific energetic frequency of our current Earth.
Okay, that makes sense. So Mars is the cinder of the last cycle. But how do the scattered, fiery fragments of a galactic car crash turn into this habitable, watery Earth we're sitting on right now?
It's a highly violent cascade of elemental physics. The scattered energy and matter from the destroyed planets begin to merge. And out of this debris, a new sun and a new moon form.
Just from the wreckage.
Right. But the text doesn't just see them as rocks and plasma. The sun represents prana, the active radiant life force, and the moon represents Rai, which is receptive matter, the physical wealth of the universe.
So energy and matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, gravity forces these newly formed bodies into orbit, and this gravitational dance is incredibly violent. The friction of these massive bodies accelerating around each other generates a massive cosmic energy. The text calls this thermodynamic force Shraddha.
Shraddha. I mean, I usually hear that translated in a spiritual context as faith or devotion, but you're saying here it's a literal kinetic force.
In this specific mechanical context, yes. Shraddha is the literal kinetic energy of creation. And this energy triggers a strict domino effect that births the 5 elements. First, the immense energy carves out akasha, which is space. The intense movement within that space creates vayu, or air.
That tracks. You need space before you can have atmospheric movement.
Right. Then, the violent friction of this rapidly moving cosmic air, heavily driven by the sun's radiant prana, it ignites into Agni, fire. The whole system is basically a superheated spinning furnace at this point.
So how do we get oceans out of a cosmic furnace?
This is where the moon steps in. The moon, representing Rai, or receptive matter, exerts its specific gravitational and energetic pull. That pull acts as a cooling mechanism on the immense cosmic fire, condensing it into Jal, water.
Wow.
Yeah. This condensation triggers a massive apocalyptic cosmic rain that falls upon the fiery remnants of the planetary cores. Finally, this torrential deluge cools the molten mass into solid land. The physical Earth is born.
It's essentially planetary tempering, like a blacksmith quenching hot steel in water.
That's a great comparison.
And the sources point out that this process was incredibly unstable, too.
Yeah.
There's this ancient story about the very first cycle, where a demon literally hides the newly formed Earth in the galactic ocean.
Yes.
The massive cosmic boar, the Varaha avatar, has to dive into the dark waters, defeat the demon, and physically retrieve the Earth, placing it back into orbit.
It's a very famous mythological narrative.
Right, but when you look at it through the lens of these technical manuals, it's not just a myth. It's an allegory for a young planet violently trying to find its gravitational footing in a newly formed solar system, just wobbling and nearly sinking into the dark matter of the cosmos before its orbit finally stabilizes.
That is exactly how to read it. It's an allegory for orbital stabilization.
Hmm.
And the text reminds us that we are currently living in the seventh Manvantara of this cycle. Earth has survived this stabilization process several times over.
Which brings up, the most important question for the listener. If the universe had to go through this apocalyptic, violent process, smashing planets together, generating cosmic fire and torrential rain, just to get Earth's orbit stable, what is the payoff? Why go to all this trouble to build this specific rock?
Well, it all comes back to those human machines we discussed earlier, the yantras. The sources state fundamentally that Earth is designed as a yaga bhumi.
A Yagabhumi.
Yes, a yaga is a ritual sacrifice or offering. So Earth is a sacrificial land. It's a highly pressured proving ground for the jivatma, the individual human soul.
So the entire universe, the galaxies, the collisions, it's all just a stage for us to learn on.
A stage, but an active, interactive one. Remember those planets formed from the galactic collision? They exert massive influence over this proving ground. Their gravitational and energetic poles dictate the conditions of the yaga bhumi, causing earthly events and profound fluctuations in human karma.
I need to understand the mechanism there, though. How does a planet's gravity influence my personal karma? Does Jupiter spinning a certain way make me a better person?
It's about energetic resonance. Think of the planets as massive magnetic broadcasters. The human brain and the subtle nervous system are the receivers. As these planets move, they alter the electromagnetic and subtle energetic fields of Earth.
Oh, I see.
This shifts the baseline psychological state of humanity. It creates eras of spiritual clarity or eras of deep materialistic confusion. It literally sets the parameters for the tests the soul will face.
And the sources mention that this system gets way more complicated as the cycle progresses, right? The deities assigned to rule these planets actually swap out over time. Early on, planets were ruled by forces like Brahaspati and Shukra, but later on, as human karma got denser, new cosmic forces took over. Shani, Buddha, and eventually Rahu and Ketu.
Exactly. The rules of the Earth change depending on which cosmic frequency is currently managing the planets.
So it's not just a corporate management shakeup where new bosses come in. It's more like changing the atmospheric pressure in a greenhouse.
Yes.
If a heavy restrictive force like Saturn or Shani takes over the planetary influence, the weather of human consciousness gets heavier. It forces the soul to adapt to a much more difficult environment to earn its karma.
That is a phenomenal way to describe it. The changing atmospheric pressure of consciousness. It explains perfectly why human history feels so chaotic and uneven. It is a highly structured, adaptive machine designed to constantly challenge the soul. Souls enter these biological yantras to earn karma, either pap, which is spiritual debt, or punya, which is merit.
And what happens when the machine breaks down, like when mortal life ends?
Based on the karma earned in that specific planetary weather, the soul travels. It goes to the Devalokas, the heavenly realms of light, or to lower realms of density to burn off negative accumulation.
Okay.
But here is the mechanism that keeps the cycle going. Once that merit or debt is exhausted, the soul doesn't stay there permanently. It automatically returns to the Bhuvaloka, the subtle atmospheric layer just above Earth.
So it just hovers there.
Basically, it waits there, carrying its prana, its core life force, and its eventual rebirth is dictated entirely by the current cosmic management and the lingering memory of its past actions.
Wow. It is an inescapable system of refinement. I mean, we've gone from a 2.7 million year loading screen rendering the cosmic background to the violent collision of galaxies. We've explored the idea that Mars is the burned-out graveyard of a past Earth, holding the energetic memory of the goddess.
Right.
We've seen how the kinetic force of Shraddha forges the elements, and finally how this entire intricate, terrifying system is simply a Yagyabhumi, a proving ground designed to subject your soul to the exact cosmic pressure it needs to evolve.
The ultimate takeaway here is that the cosmos is not empty, dead space. Every single day and night you experience is the literal interplay of prana and ray energy and matter pulling on the karmic fabric of your life. The universe is a living, breathing mechanism entirely invested in your spiritual progression, right up until this current Manvantara inevitably comes to a close.
Which brings us to one final lingering thought. Because the mechanical rules of these cosmic texts are absolute. The cycle does not stop for us. We know that when our current seventh Manvantara finally reaches its end, our sun will inevitably die. Our Earth's gravitational bonds will snap. We will be thrown out of the solar system, and in the ensuing collision of galaxies, the old Earth, Mars, will be pulverized completely into dust.
A total reset of the board.
Exactly. So the question you have to ask yourself as you look up at the night sky tonight is this. When our Earth eventually loses its life force, when the planetary managers abandon their posts and we are cast out into the dark cosmos, what will the next cycle's civilization see when they peer through their telescopes? Will our Earth become their red, desolate symbol of a bygone era? Will we simply be their new Mars? Just a silent, floating cinder holding the energetic secrets of all our history, while they live out their own epic cycle, completely unaware of what we built?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the universe around you.